What's up? Welcome into Lambo Speak, episode number 5. This is a Toilets Titles Podcast Network production. We appreciate you tuning in. I am Nate. You can find me on Twitter at Nate_Dirt19. And of course, I'm joined by Mr. Bobby Winter. You can find him on Twitter at Bobby A. Winter. How you doing tonight, Bobby?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. I put on my Jeff Janis jersey as I promised. And as we were talking about in the pre-show, I was telling you there's a website where you can actually take the jerseys and send them in. So that way, when a player is no longer on the team, you can just switch out the nameplate. So
instead of just duct taping it.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll switch out the Janis part to put whoever currently wears that number. So it's cheaper than buying a new jersey, because jersey prices went up like a year or two ago. They used to be $100. Now they're 120. So you send the jersey in and $45 and they put a new nameplate on the back. And we had to actually look it up. Samori Toure wears 83, but I was going to replace it with MVS. But MVS obviously no longer Green Bay Packers on the Kansas City Chiefs. So depending on how Samori Toure plays this year, I might send this in and get Toure put on the back.
I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can get rid of the Jeff Janis jersey. I it's just hard to do. I mean, I guess if Toure is like a dog, maybe. Yeah. But even then.
You know what it is with the Janis jersey? Only Packers fans are going to know what it is. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, who is that? You know what I mean? But like a Packers fans will know. Yeah. They'll remember that game, man.
Or they'll think you're just some dork and your last name's Janis and you got your own jersey made.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Bobby Janis. Yeah. I've got a podcast, man. You should listen to it.
Check it out. Hell yeah. You can find the show on Twitter at Toilets and Titles. If you're not following us, please do that. Obviously, you can find all our content, articles, mock drafts, all of our rankings and everything are on our website, toiletstyles.com. If you haven't checked that out yet, please do so. It is packed full of content. It's an awesome website. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Hit the little bell too, so you know when we go live. We have 4 to 5 shows a week right now. In the kind of the lull of the off season, I guess you'd say. Come this fall, I don't even know how many shows we're going to have. I feel like last year there was like 9, and I'm sure it'll be more than that this year. So if you're not following our sister network for all your college football needs, CFB Nation, please do so. Like I've said last week, they're underfollowed, and it's a shame because those guys put in a ton of work and produce some awesome content. If you're listening to us on Apple, please throw us a Apple Podcast, iTunes review, a 5-star review. That would be much appreciated. And lastly, if you'd like to interact with Bobby or myself or anybody else on the Toilets Titles team, we have a Gilded chat that we talk about just about everything in. Shoot us a DM, let us know. We'll get you into that. I had a guy hit me up today about it and got into the next Scott Fishbowl mock they do, he'll be part of, and then actually join the Frankenstein Glistener League, which I think there's like 12 spots maybe left. So if you want in a wild listener league, hit us up and we can get you in that as well. So Bobby and I were talking earlier this week, what are we going to talk about kind of, and we figured after our top 10 Aaron Rodgers moments that we would talk about Jordan Love, how things went in college, and where we are now and kind of our expectations for him. So, before we get going, or I guess before we get into the now, we can talk about his collegiate career at Utah State. Actually, I got a sweet little, I haven't showed you this. This is a little Jordan Love autograph. So I'm ready.
Oh, that's awesome. Where'd you get that?
A little, coach sent it to me a long, long time ago. Actually, nice. when we drafted him, he sent it to me.
Oh, so that's cool.
I got some J-Lo memorabilia here. I'm excited. It's I don't look at his college stats often. You kind of forget about it because it's been so long ago.
Yeah.
But he was a 3-year starter. Freshman year was kind of what you would expect it to be. He had a really good sophomore season, I think. I would say, and it kind of went back down his junior year. And I don't know if we've said it on here or not, but like you said, it just kind of seemed like he was trying to do too much. Threw a lot of interceptions. The numbers were down. Freshman year, he was 129 of 235, like 54.9% for 1,600 yards. So not very good. I was trying to scroll over a little bit there. I didn't, only threw 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, but, true freshman. and I know it's the Mountain West, so people are going to say, well, but it's still, it's a legit conference. I mean, they got some good competition in it. So the best season, though, that sophomore season was 267, a 417, 64%, threw for over 3,500 yards, 32 touchdowns, and again, had the 6 interceptions, but, that's fine. 30 touchdowns is great. The YPA for me is what I really like to see, that 8.6. I think the higher that is, obviously, I don't expect it to be 9 yards, this year. That's kind of outlandish, but, I think through 3 years in college, I think he averaged like 7.6 yards an attempt, which, as long as it's above 7.5, I'm pretty comfortable with that. His junior year, he was 293, a 473 had 61.9% completion rate for 3,400 yards and 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. So kind of came back to earth, but like we've said, and everybody said, he just didn't have the same guys and was just trying to do too much. And I think that was the downfall.
He was asked about that, especially in the pre-draft process, because if he was able to come out after his sophomore season, he probably would have been a top 10 pick. He had a stellar sophomore season, but going into his junior year, he ended up losing a lot of starters. More than half of the starters on offense either graduated or went to the NFL. So he was playing with all brand new starters on the offense. And he even admitted that he was trying to ride the wave of his sophomore season and try to create on his own and try to make plays where they just weren't there. And he said he used it as a learning experience to not try to play hero ball, ironically getting drafted by the Packers and sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, who loves to play hero ball every now and then. But, he was trying to throw into windows and try to create stuff that wasn't there. And hopefully as a player, he can learn from that. Obviously, he sat behind Aaron for the last 3 years and saw how decisive he is in his throws. And if there's something not there, and then this is probably the biggest difference between Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers, if there's nothing there, he'll throw the ball away. There's been years where he's been top 5 in throwing the ball away, which in my opinion is not a bad thing, right? Because a turnover is a lot worse than, just tossing the ball away. An incomplete pass is an incomplete pass. You live to see another down. But when you're trying to create something there and all of a sudden now you're turning the ball over and putting your defense in a disadvantageous position where now they're trying to cover the field and they have a short field, and who knows, even if they do make a stop, then they're at least putting up 3 points, So I feel like, the junior season, if anything, was a good learning experience for him. I mean, he still, like you said, threw for 3,400 yards. He still had 20 touchdowns, but what he's going to do in this first season as a NFL starter is probably going to be projected from the learning that he's done in that last season and all the learning that he's done these last 3 years.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think that, obviously he, like you said, he's taken some stuff from the collegiate career, but I think the knowledge he's gained the past 3 years is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on that. And, and I've said since day one, and it's obviously, hindsight's 2020, but how many more guys would have a successful NFL career if they had a chance to sit and not be, thrown to the wolves, week one, and I know that there's the anomalies, Justin Herbert, you can't really say that that's going to happen to everybody, because that's just wild how that, and it's continued. So obviously, he's a dude. But, Trevor Lawrence had his struggles, Justin Fields has had his struggles, but there's been so many different guys that you wonder, but the guys getting drafted earlier are going to bad teams. So
correct.
They're expected to be out there and play and, make it work. And they also, the coaching staffs could be, not quite what would help a guy, but, so that's one thing that I think helps, keeps my mind at peace, I guess, having that, the time of, I guess, just learning, and sitting there and watching and, how to be a professional. So,
Absolutely. I mean, and the one example everybody loves to point to is, the Peyton Manning first season, his rookie season. I mean, he was bad, really bad. I think he threw
Very
like
bad.
30 interceptions or something like that. And then, he had time to develop, he had time to learn, and he put it together. Now, not everybody sits for 3 years, but the one logical thing that you can point to is clearly Aaron Rodgers, right? He went through the exact same thing that Aaron Rodgers did. And let's be real, if Rodgers was ready to be a day one starter, he wouldn't have lasted to pick 24. There was teams in 2005 that did need quarterbacks and passed on Aaron Rodgers because they thought he was too much of a project. But the Packers felt secure in their ability to develop him, especially sitting behind a future Hall of Famer. And that's going to be one of like the underlying themes, I guess, of this episode is there is no correct path. Every quarterback's different. Some quarterbacks need time. Some quarterbacks need to sit. Some quarterbacks thrive. They get thrown into the thing right away, like you said. And the Chargers, it seemed like they didn't skip a beat moving on from Phillip Rivers. He came in and played tremendously. And every year has gotten a little bit better too. I mean, so everybody has their own path. You're not going to know the right thing to do when you draft a quarterback. You're kind of playing the guessing game, but even some of the best quarterbacks in the league or in the past have sat. I mean, Brady didn't play week one. He obviously was a 6th round pick or whatever, and was playing behind, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league at that time. Mahomes was drafted and played in one game his freshman year. He played in cleanup duty in week 17 in a game that didn't matter to the Chiefs because they had already secured their spot in the playoffs. He didn't start until the following year. So he got to sit behind Alex and learn and got to sit with his coach and learn the playbook. So having 3 years to sit behind Rodgers, or not even just sit behind Rodgers, but 3 years to be in the system. Like he's been in Matt LaFleur's system for the last 3 years. And another thing too, is he's been, especially over the last year, he ran all the practices. I mean, remember Rodgers like tore his thumb off the bone in week 5. Yep. So he was running with the first team offense from week 6 on as if he were the starter. So he's been practicing with the first team offense for a year, and he has all the repetitions with some of these players that have been on the team for as long as he has. Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. So it's not like he's going to be coming out there and looking like completely lost. Like he's been playing with a lot of these guys for a long time. He should come out there and play with some confidence.
No, I agree. I think the confidence will be there. And I said earlier too, that those 3 years of, like learn how to be a professional. And that is something that a lot of guys struggle with. Our team, I'm not pointing anybody out. I mean, but it's true. And, so sitting behind somebody, and regardless, I think of who it is, it's very helpful, just to your headspace, so that'll be great too. But the last thing I want to touch on about college was the rushing. Ran quite a bit. So I guess it's kind of wild if you look at the numbers. 2017 is freshman year, 46 carries for 165 yards. So only average like 3.5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. Sophomore year, 43 carries for 63 yards. So only a yard and a half, average, which is bad, but I guess must have been a lot of goal line stuff because he had 7 touchdowns on the ground. And then his junior year, he had 81 carries for 175 yards, so 2 yards a carry and no touchdowns. So it's kind of weird, his rushing stats, just kind of how they are. But, I hope that they, and I don't want him to be, I don't think he's going to be a one read run kind of guy, but I hope that they do allow him to use his legs a little bit, because he is, he's athletic. He's a big dude. I don't want him out there acting like Josh Allen running over guys.
Right.
But, like you said earlier, if it's not there, throw it away or run and slide, so.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at his athletic profile, I mean, he had a 4.74 40-yard dash. His 3 cone was a 7.21, which, I mean, he's not a wide receiver. A 7.21 for a quarterback, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So, I mean, designing up some runs for him, or even just doing like what Rodgers did in the early parts of his career, Rodgers could scoot a little bit. I mean, like I was telling you the other day, they had Super Bowl 45 on. I rewatched it again. And I forgot like how nimble and how quick Rodgers used to be, because, we're so used to watching him now at 39 years old and 38 years old. He's,
he can still scoot a little bit though. He like sneaky speed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we still own you. He ran out of the pocket and ran in for a touchdown. The championship belt, he said he only reserves that for when he gets a rushing touchdown. And we saw it a ton. So, he can scoot, man. And I think he is more athletic than Aaron Rodgers. He's a little bit taller. He's got a big arm. Rodgers obviously had a huge arm as well. It's just, what is LaFleur going to expect from him? Because clearly in college, they probably could have used him more effectively as a rusher with that athletic profile. So I think it was in the Chiefs game, they had him tuck and run. They had a couple design runs for him in that game as well. So I think LaFleur understands what he has in him, hopefully. So again, like you said, I don't want him running around like Josh Allen running QB power or anything like that. You know what I mean? Especially with the way that the depth chart looks below him. If he goes down, the season's lost, So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if his rushing, like, I think we talked about this a couple of episodes ago when we were talking about his projected fantasy stats. They project him to be somewhere in that 35 to 3,700 yard passing. And I thought that the rushing was really low. They were expecting him to have about 13 rushes for the season or something like that. That's insanely low. Yeah. Even if you just look at the attempts that you were talking about in college, I mean, he had a year where he had 80 attempts in less games than an NFL season. I think if you're going to pick him up, that you can count on a little bit more of a rushing total than, especially in the first year. Definitely. Especially in the first year. I think if something's not there, he's probably going to hear, if it's not there, just tuck it and run. You know what I mean? Slide and live for another down. He could pick up a couple of yards here or there if the check down's not there. That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah. I want to touch too, that 2018 season, sophomore year, that was his good season, led the Mountain West in passing efficiency to 158.3 passer rating. So very good that season there. And then also led the Mountain West in total yards per play at, average 7.9 yards per play. And that was number one in the conference. So, just, nothing huge, but still, some nice little, points, I guess, to make about that collegiate career. Cause it seems like it's been so long ago. Real quick too, if you would like to support the show and become part of our Patreon, we would greatly appreciate that. The Patreon supporters we have now, thank you guys so much. You guys help us keep the lights on, and things wouldn't be possible without you guys. So, we have 5 different tiers in our Patreon, and we'd love to talk to you guys about it. If you're interested, hit us up. So patreon.com/toilets-titles, and we would really appreciate the help. So the last thing here, and it's not the last thing, take a bit here, but, kind of our expectations, you just touched on the yards. We're thinking, and I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts, not just Packers ones, and there's a lot of people that it's like they're, I know when we talked to win-loss, I said I was kind of on the under, and that not that I don't have confidence in Love. I just think things are kind of tough. The defense should be great, but I don't know if it will be. As poor as it was last year, I know down the stretch, I think the last 6 games, they only allowed like 17 points a game, had a lot of turnovers. So they played really, really well when they had to down the stretch. But if that's going to be the case, the third and long was miserable. The offense on third down was bad. Defense on third down was bad. They were miserable in the red zone, couldn't stop the run, and what's changed in our defense, so we're not going to be able to rely on 12 to just say, oh, don't worry about it. So, my thing, I think expectation wise, I said before the show, 3,500 yards, and that's not, I don't think that's crazy to say for a guy in his first year. Like I said, 200 yards, roughly 200 yards a game. that doesn't seem, you know, outlandish. I don't, it's not like I'm saying,
Right.
oh, he's going to throw for 5,000 yards this year.
Right.
And
especially, Justin Fields hasn't even thrown for 300 yards in a game yet. And this is his third year going in. So,
like I'm hoping it'd be nice, like 30 touchdowns, maybe. I know that's a little higher than I think a lot of people have him projected for. And I think he'll get 5, maybe 4 or 5 on the ground. That's just, I guess that's me being hopeful that he will run and that they'll kind of let him run. And not necessarily like the rugby play, because I don't know if that's still even going to be a thing or not. But I do think he'll throw, he'll have some interceptions. I don't know, maybe a dozen. That's kind of where I'm at. And with the rushing, like I said, I'm hoping for like 200 yards, like 250 yards. That'd be awesome. That doesn't seem like a lot, but I feel like as much as we're going to run the ball and, with his ability to create, why not, let him run a little bit and, see what we can do. So it'd be nice if it was higher than that, but I don't think that's a lot. I mean, I've been betting on Daniel Jones over in rushing yards literally like every single game for the last 2 years, and he hits it every time. That dude runs for he averages like 60, 70 yards a game, and I don't think we need that, but just let him take off a little bit. So I guess where are you at for yardage and everything?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the zone read, I think, will be a part of the offense until it doesn't need to be anymore. I think they need to keep teams honest because, I mean, a lot of teams are probably thinking, hey, this guy is a first-year starter. The Packers have an elite run game. They do. Aaron Jones is a top 5 running back, in my opinion. And A.J. Dillon is probably the best RB2 in the league.
Now that Dalvin Cook's gone, that him and Madison were a great 1-2 punch. Even Swift and Jamal Williams. Granted, now Kamara and Jamal Williams is a pretty good 1-2 punch, but that wasn't a joke, because Kamara is going to get suspended or something. But I mean, there's quite a few teams, and wherever Dalvin Cook lands up is going to be nasty. I mean, I think he should go to the Jets. Why would you not want more help? I don't care. You got Breece Hall. Have another guy. Have 3 guys.
But one thing, especially with the zone read, and it doesn't have to be zone read, but the threat of him running will keep opposing defenses more honest, right? Yeah. Because they're going to be expecting the run, right? So it's either going to be a run or a pass. But if they're also expecting him to run as well, it just creates a whole nother dynamic that they're going to either have to keep a spy on him, or they're going to have to expect that when he does these bootlegs, that they'll actually be designed runs for him, and it'll keep the defense honest and not expecting it, and could honestly increase the effectiveness of play action passing off of bootlegs and stuff like that.
Yeah. That the 6-back offense, like what I call that or whatever, when like that, I mean, I don't think they're going to be running the wishbone, or like the Oklahoma offense, like the Eagles run. But that makes, there's so many teams that can't defend that, they're just not ready for it. And it's not that they're not ready for it. They've been practicing it all week, but if you have a spy or not, it's a little different nowadays, with how quick some of these middle linebackers are. But if that's what you're spying with, he may not even be fast enough to keep up with the quarterback. So it doesn't really matter if he's watching him or not, So it's just that extra element that whether it takes heat off of him, or the receivers or whatever. I think it's vital that they have to let him run the ball. I mean, and like we've said it a dozen times tonight already, but I'm not looking for him to rush for 1,000 yards, but he's got to be able to run the ball just to take some pressure off of him and the passing game.
Exactly.
So,
and for the passing statistics, like you were saying, 30 total touchdowns. I mean, even if 25 of them were through the air and 5 of them were rushing, I mean, that doesn't seem far-fetched. It seems within the realm of possibility, especially if they are doing design runs for him, or if he's just obviously, if anybody watched him in college, they know that his strength was making a play after the pocket collapse or after the play falls apart, acting off script. That's where he excelled. And you have to try to find the balance of, okay, well, would you rather have a quarterback that plays well in the pocket, but when he's outside the pocket doesn't really create very well on his own, or somebody who plays well outside the pocket, who can create something out of nothing, but you have to teach him the structure of playing within the pocket and understanding the offense and playing within rhythm. In my opinion, I think it's easier to get somebody to play within the pocket, to already have the ingenuity to play outside the pocket, and you teach the guy and let him sit for 3 years and let him sit behind one of the greatest to ever do it and see how he operates in the pocket, moves within the pocket, waits for the play to develop. That is learning football, where the other is more like learning an art form. You're either an artist or you're not.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it'll be, I think the team obviously has confidence in him, and it's not very, it's not like you're going to hear somebody say like, well, no, he looks like shit out there. Like we're in trouble, but it doesn't, it seems like right now, all you hear is just a bunch of bullshit from teams like, oh, he's light years ahead of where he was last year. And every single offseason, it's the same thing.
Yep.
Trey Lance looks better than he's looked. And no, he hasn't. He doesn't look, he's never done but it doesn't matter what the team is, but it doesn't feel like that's what you're hearing out of Green Bay. And I don't want to hear that, because that, like I said, that's just, we know you're full of it, and that's not, okay, sure, everybody looks great when they're wearing just a helmet,
For
so
sure.
You don't really know. And when I think I heard, Colin Cowherd say like, oh, I think they're trending down, he's taking it one day at a time. It's like, man, it's just, like, whatever, dude. I care. I don't give a shit.
I saw that today too, actually. Cowherd, I guess it's just moving the hate from Rodgers to the next Green Bay Packers quarterback.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah, but actually, the more on the commenting. So, like, obviously, like you said, in this offseason, especially at this time, everybody's going to be doing that like coach speak, where the oh man, he's made so many strides, he's playing
really faster than he's ever looked, best shape.
Yeah, he's never looked better than he does right now. Yeah, but some of the things that some current Packers players are saying were very interesting, and obviously they can't win. Right. No matter what they say right now, where they shower him with praise or just say the typical thing that everybody expects them to say, nothing's ever going to be good enough to convince somebody otherwise. But that doesn't mean that you still can't find it interesting and enjoy it for what it is. Like, for instance, Jair Alexander coming into his press conference or not a press conference, but, he's just being interviewed in the locker room. If you watch Pat McAfee, like he was in a locker room, and he has Pac-Man Jones on his show right now, who's a defensive player.
I thought it was interesting. I'm a big West Virginia fan, so.
Oh, okay. Well, Pac-Man said something kind of interesting. He was saying that typically defensive players hang out with defensive players, offensive players hang out with offensive players. So for a defensive player, especially like somebody of Jair's caliber, to come in and interrupt him being interviewed and, throw his arm around him and tell him, QB1, this is the best QB in the league. Like, he didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? That wasn't his time to be in front of the camera. They have their own allotted times where they're supposed to meet with the media and come in and say those things. Like, Jair is a wealthy man. He's been on this team for a long time. If he didn't want to be in front of a camera, he didn't have to be, so he took it upon himself to go out and say those things. Like, when he really didn't have to. Nobody asked him, hey, do you think Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the league? You know what I mean? He came out and volunteered that information. Now, whether, it's true or not, you know what I mean? That's one thing, but it seems like the guys really are rallying around him right now, which is a good thing. They should be, but more importantly, they're coming together as a team that we really haven't seen from the Packers over the last couple of years. And I get it. It's intimidating because Aaron Rodgers, not only is he such a great quarterback, but he's also kind of turned into a celebrity. Like, people are kind of starstruck when they're around him, especially being a new player coming to that team. They, you've seen it over the years. People are like, oh my God, it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, and they've watched him ever since they were a child, and now they're an adult and they play on the same team with them. It's intimidating, but now they're with somebody who's more their age, somebody who they can relate to and stuff like that.
I agree. And and it's like, just like you said, it instills confidence in him. And, I think that's what we need and that's what he needs. And, I could say it 10 times just how it's nice to not hear like, oh, he's, this, and, we don't need to hear any of that crap because we all know it doesn't really matter till, was it September 10th? So,
That's right.
and I'm curious to see what his role will be in the preseason. If Sean Clifford's going to get a long leash, just because why not? But I think Love needs some reps, so hopefully he'll get enough. But
I imagine they'll do the same thing that they did with Rodgers a couple of years ago, where they, in the last preseason game or maybe the second preseason game, they let him come in for like the first quarter or something like that. Because let's be real, he does need reps, but he's had 3 years worth of reps of doing the preseason year after year after year. And we do not need him getting injured by some future insurance salesman who happens to be playing in the preseason. Like we lived through it with Jordy Nelson. No, I'm not. I'd rather him just play a quarter,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Shake the cobwebs off. And actually that just leads me to the last thing I wanted to talk about with the comments that are coming out. So like you brought up the Colin Cowherd thing. Like you're not hearing anything coming out from the Green Bay Packers camp about him being amazing or as advertised. Well, you have to also understand they're trying, when they say to temper your expectations, I think they're saying it from a position of, hey, for the last 17 years, you've watched greatness, like one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. We're not saying that Jordan Love isn't that. We're not saying that he is. You just need to realize that you need to temper your expectations that he is coming in and playing for the first time. And you can't expect to have your quarterback throw for 48 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions when this is his first time as a full-time NFL starter.
With receivers that have played, with 3 guys that have played 1 season in the NFL and a couple of guys that have never played in the NFL, like, that's legit. Okay, 50 touchdowns, sure. Okay, makes sense.
And my point is, telling a Packers fan to temper their expectations is different than telling a fan of literally any other team to temper their expectations. Yeah. We went from Hall of Fame quarterback to Hall of Fame quarterback. Yep. For 30 years, we have seen nothing but excellent quarterback play. So when they're saying temper your expectations, I think they're talking to Packers fans, not NFL fans. Packers fans go into every single season thinking that we can win the Super Bowl.
Yep.
What other team has been able to say that for the last 30 years, except for the Brady years in New England? They couldn't.
No, I mean, not until recently. No, it wasn't. So, and I get it. And I completely agree. And, it doesn't matter what you say, somebody's going to find whether it's the bad, the good, or whatever out of it, so I think I guess just kind of pay attention, and run your own race and listen to what you want to hear, I guess. But, I'm excited. And I think we've said that every episode, but
so excited. I'm excited for every season, but honestly, like this is like we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, Rodgers has been the starting quarterback our entire adult lives. Mm-hmm. In 2008, when he took over, I was 20 years old. I don't remember a lot of Favre playing, in regular season games when I was a teenager and stuff. That was, a long time ago. But I remember a lot of regular season games from Aaron Rodgers. And, I really came into my football fandom really around the time that Rodgers took over. Same. I would watch games with my dad and stuff. And I remember the 2 Super Bowls with Brett Favre and everything. And I have a very vivid memory of the first one, the Super Bowl win. It was the moment I literally became a Packers fan. Because up to that point, I knew my father was a Packers fan. That's how I, living in New York at the time, I became a Packers fan. But just seeing the joy on his face when the Packers won the Super Bowl and seeing, Favre celebrating like that with the, the helmet in his hand and everything, I was like, oh, I totally get this now. Yeah. I was like, the start of my, like, being a loyal Green Bay Packers fan. So yeah, I mean, how could you not be excited to see the next chapter? I mean, we've only seen 2 chapters our entire lives.
I mean, a chapter and a half almost.
Right. Right. So, I mean, how could you not be? I mean, he could suck and I'm still so excited to find out, but I don't think he's going to.
No. The one last thing I want to talk about too, and I think we were tweeting each other today about the Beer Olympics with Tucker Kraft and Bakhtiari. They're looking good.
So entertaining.
I'm very proud of them. We knew Bakhtiari would be great. But Tucker Kraft holding his own. The I guess trying to think the North Dakota kid, right? No,
South Dakota.
South Dakota. Sorry, wrong school. The Jackrabbit. He's a hell of a beer chugger. So
absolutely,
yeah,
it's impressive.
It's been fun to watch. So
for sure.
Hell yeah. Well, next week I'll be up in Michigan recording an episode. So I'm going to take a little vacation. So I got my nice hat on, ready to go outside, be safe in the sun. So
nice.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Check out all our stuff. Yeah. Check out all our content on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you would, we would really appreciate it. Give us a 5-star review on Apple as well. Check out toiletstyles.com. And if you're wanting to get into our Gilded chat, let me know and we'll get you in there. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
What's up, Title Tribe? We appreciate you watching the show. If you want to catch up on all of our college football content, make sure you subscribe to the CFB Nation by clicking their link below. Make sure you subscribe to the Toilets Titles Podcast Network by clicking our link below. And make sure to catch our other content by watching these videos to the side.